just writing what's on your heart and what's on your mind. And I typed those questions out and I gave them to our panel. And some of them feel passionately about certain questions that they have said, hey, I'm keen to say something about that. So each question I'm going to direct to somebody, but then I'm going to open up to the rest of the panel, okay? They do not have to agree with each other. Just like we are never all going to agree on everything, okay? So we want you to have different perspectives, so don't panic. If Mr. Leung says something, and then I'll tell you, if anybody's going to disagree, it's these two guys over here. They're sitting right next to each other. So don't panic. They love each other. And but we want to just sometimes. But we want you to hear that there are different perspectives, and there's not always one answer for everything, okay? So that's really how it's going to be. So these two chairs, you may say, why are they there? While we are talking, if you have something that goes, oh, I want to ask them that, you can come and sit on this chair. And then sometime during these questions, I will stop with the questions you submitted, and you may ask your question. Okay? So we will do that. Let's open up in prayer, and then we'll get started. Okay, let's pray. God, I thank you for this opportunity where we can have real conversations about real life stuff that's on our mind, that's on our hearts, God. And I just pray for each person on our panel, God, that you'll give them wisdom, that the words they speak would be the words that you want them to speak. God, I pray for each one of us listening that our hearts would be open, our ears would be open to hear what it is that you want to say and speak into our lives. So we thank you for this time together in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so first of all, I would like to ask our panel to introduce themselves, and they can let's say favorite food. Favorite food in Taiwan. Okay, favorite food in Taiwan. All right, let's start from this side and we'll work our way. Okay, introduce yourself and favorite food.
Hi guys, I'm Mrs. Wan, and I think I've taught all of you guys except for 6th grade. The incoming 6th grade. My favorite food in Taiwan is the 大肠包小肠, like the nuo mi. Yeah, the sticky rice and then it wraps around the Taiwanese sausage. That is the best.
Sweet. Hi guys, I'm Mr. Leung. You guys probably know me. I meow a lot. That happens sometimes. Meow meow. My favorite food in Taiwan is the guabao like stand and gongguan, which is like the best guabao in Taiwan, which means it's literally the best guabao in the world. So I miss it a lot.
Hi guys, my name's Mr. Pike. I teach the grade 8 Bible kids, so you guys know me well, but grade 6 and 7, hello. My favorite food, you're probably all gonna laugh because my favorite Taiwanese food is niu rou mian, beef noodles.
Why is that funny? That's awesome.
That's funny because someone said to me the other day, "Oh, that's such a white guy food." I was like, "That's Taiwan's national dish."
I know, dude.
But yeah, that's my favorite.
Hi, you guys. I haven't taught any of you, but I know a lot of you. So am I allowed to say whose mom I am? Or I guess a lot of you know. Okay, so Charlie Claire Cottle on the first row. And then I have Hudson, I won't say your middle name, Cottle, in the back row over there, dressed all in black. Anyways, yeah, so I'm excited to be here. I have a question. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions about them, feel free to sit in the seats. I'd be happy to share. Anyways, yeah, my favorite food, it might be another, white guy food. I don't know, but I love G-pie, like dirty, greasy, like hot, a little spice on there. That's probably my favorite, like night market. I go for the G-pie. Anyways.
Let me just add, my favorite food is that egg that you get in the little box and you put the soya sauce on. Is it danbing?
Yeah.
That in Taiwan, okay? That's my favorite food. All right. So let's start. There's many questions. Let me just add, my favorite food is that egg that you get in the little box. And
I
you
don't
put
like
the
to hear
soy
my own
sauce on.
voice.
Is it done?
What's going on? Who's that? Who is that?
I was like, it's a specter.
It's me. All right.
It's the phantom. It's the phantom of the middle school.
Okay, technical problems. All right, we're going to start. Let's start a little bit easier. Okay, so Mrs. Wan, I'm going to direct this question to you first. Somebody asked, how can I make friends?
Okay, I read this question and I felt like the maybe the heart behind asking this question was a little bit self-focused, like how can I make friends? How can I get friends? How can I have a lot of friends? And I would encourage the asker of this question to focus outward. How can I be a good friend? How can I keep my friends? So I think practically choose one or two people that you already feel safe and comfortable with and give it your all. How can you be kind to this person today? They're your classmate, they're a friend, you want to build a friendship. How can you say a word of encouragement or compliment them today? When you hear about a person struggling with school, you guys go in the same classes, you guys have the same teachers. When you hear about them struggling with some emotions or issues at home or on the sports team, how can you support them or help them out? Because trust me, I think the more you do this, you give yourself to that person, they will reciprocate. And if they don't, they're probably not a friend worth having. So how can I be a good friend? That's my advice.
Wonderful. That was a deep statement at the end that maybe they're not a good friend to have then. That was like, wow. None of these beautiful students in front of us. Absolutely not. Other schools. Okay, thank you. All right, so still on you want to add? Oh, sorry, Mr. Pike.
This is an issue that adults face as well, because I remember when Mrs. Pike first got the job here back then it was Bethany Morrison. I was what was I called? A staff husband, which is like a unique category. So it's not quite staff and it's not students, so not in the mix. I'm kind of on the edge. So I had to think about, how do I develop relationships with people who I don't have a lot of connection with, but I'd like to get to know, because I admired a lot of the male staff members and female staff members too, but I was particularly interested in being friends with the male staff members. And so I had to kind of put myself out there a little bit and maybe go for walks or do something that would be not normally something I would do. And so at first, going from no friends, and now I can say I have several good friends on the staff. I'm thankful for that. So I would say that is a testimony that when you ask God for something like this and then you work toward that goal, I believe God will help you with that.
You want to?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. So there's also like a practical side to what Mr. Pike and Mrs. Wan was sharing, and just imagine you're spending time with a person, and this person is entirely self-absorbed, right? This person wants to talk all the time. This person only wants to tell his or her stories and only wants to do the things that he or she wants to do, and you must do them because you're friends. That's not a pleasant friendship to have, right? And you might go along with it because you care about the person, and that's fine. But sometimes when we are worried about not being able to connect with people, we kind of freak out a little bit, and we're like, oh man, I got to tell this thing, that I need to say this thing. And it kind of backfires a little bit because the people around you are like, man, why is this person trying to get all this attention, right? And I understand that that's a difficult spot to be in, but like what Mrs. Wan said, imagine considering somebody else just shows kindness to you all the time and asks you good questions and wants to be there for you and to support you, and even just to hang out and is interested in you as a person, right? That person would be super pleasant to get along with, right? And so to add to that, right, when you show kindness to other people, it feels a little bit like a sacrifice, right? You're like, oh man, I'm not able to do the thing I want to do or to say the thing that I want to say, but I'm going to choose to show kindness to someone else. That's a great way to build a trusting friendship, right? And it becomes a cycle where you support your friend and your friend supports you, and back and forth. And there's one more key piece I think here is forgiveness. Your friend will absolutely mess up. Your friend will say something or do something and make a mistake that will hurt you. But choosing to forgive that friend will build a stronger friendship after that.
Great. And on the topic of friendship, let me say I would pronounce it Cordell, but Mrs. Coddle, is that right? Somebody asked, so they have friends, but these friends have a negative influence on their life. And so they're saying, how do I deal with friends that have they said, negativity in my life?
I know I read that question, you guys, and I was like, oh, that could be two ways. And I totally drew Hudson in. I was like, what do you think this means? Do you think this means like somebody who's negative, who is always talking negatively about other people, who just has a negative perspective when they're like looking at life and things that are going on in your life? Or is this somebody who's just constantly choosing negative things to do and they're trying to draw you into it and to do things that are wrong or bad? And we went with number one, that this is maybe a friendship that has a negative impact is in the way of maybe this is somebody who's complaining, or maybe they're always like, I don't know, critiquing you, or I don't know. This is my interpretation of the question, you guys. And so the way I'm going to answer it is more to this way, okay? Maybe somebody who's kind of coming down on you as a friend, but as your friend, but maybe they're really critical of you, but not just you, other people around you, maybe people that you like, but they tend to kind of bring them down, or maybe they're just negative even about themselves. And again, I would just echo what the panel's already said. This is not just a middle school problem or an issue. This is something that throughout the rest of your life, you're going to come in contact with just personality types, people who struggle in this area of negativity, where it's really difficult for them to see the good in other people. I'm sure you guys we could all sit here and testify in situations in our life where we struggle with those things. And so biblically, I think I immediately thought, we have to love our enemies. So how much more are we called to like love our friends, even the ones that are hard to love? And he didn't say just be nice to your enemies or be okay with your enemies. He said to love them, and I think in our relationships, so often all we see are when it's somebody who's like over and over again negative, that's all we ever see. And I think the Lord is asking us to see with his eyes, to see beyond like their behavior and what they're doing, and ask, what is the most loving and compassionate thing that I could do for this friend who's always negative? And so I think in my life, in these relationships, I think really asking the Lord to like humble me. Oh man, this whole log in my eye thing. If I'm able to see like my own big things, then I'm able to go before the Lord and be humble, and not only before the Lord, but then before other people and be humble. If I'm going to bring something up, and then you guys, in friendship, honesty is key. Humility and honesty are the two things that really hit me in this question. Because if you keep saying, oh, it's okay, or ha ha ha, sure, yeah, look at that person. If you keep going along with it, you guys, like, you're not loving your friend who's being negative. And you're kind of, it's affecting you, it's changing you too. So the biggest thing I've noticed in my life, and I've gone years in friendships, where I've allowed just this negative talk to go on, and I've just kind of like pushed it aside and go, okay, or I'll try to change the subject, or I'll do other things, but I never was loving enough to say anything. And then half the time, you guys, when I do get to that point where I'm like, oh man, that really, like when I'm able to be really honest with a person, it just like, most of the time you're like, why have you never said anything before? Is the response I get back. So you'd be surprised at some of the people who are saying these things, how willing they are to like really receive something from you. And half the time, this negativity is coming from from hurt or loss or insecurity or something like that, but you would never know if you just keep letting it happen and you don't love your friend enough to say something. So I would really encourage those things, you guys. Compassion, humility in the way that you approach someone who's really negative in your life. And then you would just be honest with them. Okay. And you wouldn't let it just continue to go on and on and on. And like I said, this is not a middle school problem. And so this is something that's going to come up over and over and over again in your life. And you guys are like this generation of COVID and riots and wars and all these things are going on. So there's a lot of reasons to be negative, right? Not even like, let's not even put on, and can I say this? I don't know, puberty. Like we throw that out there and that like brings up all kinds of like emotions and thoughts, and you're trying to sort things through. And so I think that those three things are just really key when we're thinking about this. So
Thank you. Humility, honesty, and compassion. Wonderful. Okay, so Mr. Leong, somebody is asking, how do they protect themselves from others making fun of them because of religion or looks?
Yeah, so I chose all the questions that I had a lot of experience with. And so growing up as like a fat kid, which is okay, it's okay to laugh, but you get like punked on a lot by people, and people treat you in a way that's not always the most kind. And so it took, and the first thing I want to say to you is, if you find yourself like being made fun of and being picked on for your religion or for your looks or for your choices or for your clothes or your athletic ability or for your grades, whatever, you are not alone, okay? First, I want you to know that you are not alone. And second, that you are created fearfully and wonderfully in God's image, and that you are loved and cared for greatly, okay? Sometimes it doesn't feel like it, right? Sometimes it feels like, oh man, like my friends don't actually care about me, or my family doesn't care about me, like, and you need to know that that's not true, okay? And so on that, it took me a long time, and it took a lot of help, so you need to be patient with yourself. But we have to learn this really important skill of defeating lies with truth, okay? And what that means is you need to constantly find yourself refreshed with what is true and right and what is good, okay? And so learning and grounding myself in who God has made me to be, what He says I am, is different than what perhaps other people say that I am, right? When I talk to my friends and students and my family, and they're able to tell me true things that I sometimes don't believe, that will help me to fight off the lies, right? Tell you guys a quick story. I think some of you guys know this. My senior year of high school, was when I finally kind of learned this skill, right? And I was on the swim team in high school, and we were traveling to another school for a swim meet, and our school's tennis team was going to go compete in a tennis match the same day. And so we were on the bus man, sorry, I got like weird stuff in my throat. Okay, that's better. So we were traveling on the same bus together. We're like, oh, let's just travel together. And I had two really good friends on the tennis team. They were also seniors, right? And I was sitting on the edge of the swim team. We sat on one side of the bus, and the tennis team sat here. I sat on the edge so that I could talk to my tennis team friends. And we're just talking, And then partway through, this random dude who I've never seen before in my whole life chimes in. And he goes, hey, are you guys talking about Nelson? That's my first name. And then we're like, what? Yes? I kind of wanted to see what happened, so I was like, yes. He's like, man, that guy's a loser. And I was like, oh, tell me more. And then he was like, yeah, this guy, he like lies about stuff, and he's stupid, and he's terrible at swimming, and then and he said a bunch of bad words. And he's just saying all these things, and he's like, yeah, like, oh, he's like mean to people, and then I'm like, oh yeah, man, that guy sounds terrible. And then, it was during this interaction, and then my swim team friends behind me were like getting super mad. They're like, we're gonna go beat him up for you. And then my tennis team friends were just dying. They were laughing super hard because this random guy who had no idea who I was claimed to know me and was saying all this bad stuff, right? And so it was at that moment, like we're during this conversation, we get to the bus. We're getting off the bus, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's just venting for like 15 minutes about this terrible guy Nelson, right? And he's like, yeah, he like stole my money, and it was just a bunch of random stuff. And then we're getting off the bus, and he's like, oh hey, what's your name, man? And I was like, I'm Nelson. Nice to meet you for the first time. And he was like, oh, and my tennis team friends were like, they were like dying from laughter. It was great. And so the reason I'm telling you this story is because while in the past those comments would have greatly bothered me, right? But like one, like this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and two, he doesn't care about me, right? And so I was able to finally separate truth from false, like statements, right? And it's the people who truly know and truly care about me who I decided to listen to, okay? And so to answer that question of how do you deal with bullies, one, or if we're being made fun of, one, you're not alone. Two, practice truth in your lives, okay? Three, be patient with yourself.
I always think when people are mean about other people, it says, if they say mean things about me, it says more about them than it does about me. So protect yourself. Don't lower yourself to that level by retaliating. And just remember, it's actually saying a lot about that person. So try not to let it get into your heart. Okay, so Mr. Pike, I would like to ask you, somebody said, how can I be a Christian when my parents aren't? I heard a
I actually became a Christian a bit later in life. I was 19 years old when I became a Christian. And I actually remember Mrs. Pike explaining the gospel to me. We were sitting on the side of a canal, which is like a river. And she was explaining the gospel to me. And I honestly had no clue what she was talking about. Like, the stuff wasn't there for me to be able to process what she was saying to me in a way that I could understand it. So that was a process that took some time. And then when I was in my first year of university, I was 19, and I was sitting in my university dormitory bed, and I was reading this book about someone who was talking about God, and he sensed that God was calling him into a relationship to believe God. And I thought to myself, I think you're doing that with me too. And I closed the book and I said, Lord, I'm in. And I went to sleep. That was it. So then I went home during the first break from university and I told my father that I had become a Christian. And he was not happy. He was very not happy because he grew up in a Roman Catholic, which is a group of the Christian faith. We're Protestants, and I think you all know this, that he grew up in the Catholic Church. And he had a very harsh upbringing, which was like memorization and forcing and a lot of rules. And he thought about me, like, I've given you this life. Why in the world would you want to go down this path? Like, you're free. Why would you want to go down this path? So it was honestly years before he could really see a significant change in my life. And then many, many years later, he actually converted himself to faith in God. So the thing I would say about that is this is a long-term thing. This is not something, it might be, but it's probably not something that's going to happen overnight. But as your parents or your family see changes in you, as God renews you and you live out that life, that will say a lot to your parents or your family members that there's something real to this. And so be patient. Again, the idea of patience, right? This is a long-term thing.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing your story. Wow, Mrs. Pike. That's so cool that she was able to share that with you. Mrs. One, back to you. This question, I have a mix of emotions, mostly anger, bottled up, and I can't control it. What should I do? And another one, and I don't know if you want to deal with it separately or together, but another person on the issue of emotions, I struggle with one of my biggest fears, separation anxiety. How do I stop being scared?
Okay, I'll talk about the emotions, the mix of emotions, mostly anger part. When I read this question, I thought to this person, great job for being so aware of your own emotions. I can't believe, teenager at this, age, because I'm an adult. I have many adult friends. They're not even aware that they're feeling these feelings, and knowing that you feel it and you can articulate it is already a huge step. So I just want to say good job for typing out this question, naming it mostly anger, and it's true. I would encourage you to maybe, if you're so aware of your emotions, maybe you can start pinpointing why your emotions expresses itself as anger, because anger can come out of an emotion deep down inside from shame. If you're ashamed of something, and people talk about it, or even just in a sermon, you feel angry at yourself or at your past or at how you were brought up. It might be because of guilt. You're guilty about something, or or not even something bad you've done, but sometimes I have a guilt of what a blessed life I live in, and then I feel guilty for all the other people who are suffering. So you're mad. You're like injustice, right? So you're mad about that. Sometimes sadness. I asked my husband for permission, but when he's sad, it comes out as anger too. Like when he's upset about something he's done, or when he's let someone down, when he's disappointed his team, comes out as anger. Or insecurity. You're insecure about something in your life. So maybe try pinpointing that and observe when you get triggered. When do you get angry? And how do you pinpoint, how do you observe these things? I think one way is to find someone that you trust to share these feelings with as you verbally process them. Some of us need to talk it out. You might not make any sense, but talk it out. I was blessed enough to have a mom I could talk to, maybe a friend, someone in youth group or classmate, teacher. Obviously, chaplains here. Or if you're kind of like a shyer person, you process, internally, you might want to write things down in a journal. Write down what happened, who was involved when you got angry, what was said between, the whole event. And when you read and find patterns in your journal, that might give you a little clue on why it comes out. And I think just talking to them, being aware of it is great. And when you talk about it to someone, perhaps like what Mr. Leung said, you're realizing you're not the only one who feels this way. Yeah. And someone else's emotions might be expressed as sadness. That's what I do. I cry. When I'm angry, I cry. When I feel hopeless, I cry. When I'm really happy, I cry too. I'm like so emotional. I can talk about the separation anxiety part, but I want maybe have them talk a little bit first. Yeah.
I'll also just add, I had to learn the value of talking to somebody because I was always the kind of person that I wanted people to talk to me, but I never wanted to talk to anybody about what I was struggling with. And I really did learn the value, because there is such value in just processing things verbally with somebody in a safe space. That really helps. Even if you don't think it will help, I'm telling you now it will help. Just speaking about it does help. Do you want to add?
Yeah, there's a little bit of, I just want to add to what Ms. Rafferty was saying. There's a little bit of a social stigma in Asian culture and in Christian culture, a little bit, that like there's shame with, Let's
go to Mrs. Cottle. And somebody said, I want to become a Christian, but I have a hard time believing in God. What do I do?
This is such a good question, you guys. First, I think the first thing that I thought of when I saw this question too is I was like, oh man, I've been a believer for a really long time. And I think I've struggled with doubt throughout my Christianity. I think that it's been this thing where I've constantly had to come back to the Lord. And oh man, I bought in, right? I was 9 years old when I walked down the aisle and prayed the prayer and was baptized. So for me, it's been a long journey. And it's been a journey of like, oh man, God, are you even there? Am I even praying to anybody? And so it has been such a journey of faith over and over again. And I don't know, maybe some of you have that same story. Like, yeah, I told my mom and dad I wanted to become a Christian. I prayed the prayer, but sometimes maybe I was wrong. I just really struggle with doubt. Right? Is there anybody, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't ask a question and make you raise your hand. Anybody who struggles with doubt ever? Like, I think most of the adults in the room, we're at a place in our life where we're ready to say, yeah, like I've really struggled, man. It's been difficult. And I think that the first like verse that came to my mind, or the story in the Bible, is from Mark 9. When there's a man who's asking Jesus, who's in the presence of Jesus, you guys, like he actually sees him in flesh and blood before him. And he's like, well, Jesus, if you can do this for me, will you do it? Like, he's like, for us, right, we live by something called faith. We believe without seeing Jesus in his physical body, in his personhood. This guy is standing in the middle of the street with the Son of God, with Jesus. He's looking at his eyes. He's probably seen his miracles, or he wouldn't have asked him this question, right? So he's obviously observed miracles, because some of us are like, oh, maybe if I could see a miracle, maybe if my arm was broken and I asked Jesus to heal it and he healed it, then I could believe. Or maybe, I don't know what it is. Maybe if I heard an audible voice from heaven, then I would believe. You guys, there were Israelites in the desert that heard audible voices. There are people who saw seas parted and still did not believe. They still struggled with belief, like it was hard. And I think this guy's response to Jesus is so key for like all of us. Help my